That's right.
Swag.
Checkmate.
Swag.
Swag, swagger, swag. Swag, swagger, swag. I don't really want it because I'm Michael Jackson bad.
What's going on? It's your boy Lionel, class of 2009, back with another episode of TV versus everybody. And y'all already know what it is, man. It is week 9 of the recap with Coach Ice, Northern, and my co-host, Mr. Terry Mickens. And I'm super excited about week 9, man. Listen, I feel like the SWAC season is just super ramping up right now. Like, it's only going to get more and more interesting each week as it goes, especially on the west side of things, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm super excited about that. But before we get into, this week's talk, right, this week's recap, first and foremost, I got to remind you, listen, if you're not following us over on PV_versus_ everybody, make sure you're following us over on both platforms, right? You know what I'm saying? Because we got some great things that we are building that we're doing on both platforms. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you're following us on both of those over there. Also, listen, go like and subscribe to the channel. All right, no matter who you are, where you're coming from, what program you represent, don't like and subscribe to the channel, man, because we're trying to do some big things over here. And listen, you already know what the goal is. We've already surpassed our 500 goal. We already surpassed our 600 goal. Now we on to 750, man. seeking 750 subscribers before the end of this year, before the end of this football season. So if you are somebody who comes and watches the show, which we know that majority of people that watch the show are not subscribers, man, go and show some love and go ahead and subscribe to the channel and show your love, man. Just show your love by going subscribing to the channel, man. And listen, with that being said, this week was homecoming, man. You know what I'm saying? So hey, PVHC2K24. But listen, I mean, all these people and all this talk about enjoying homecoming, but how you gonna enjoy homecoming and you ain't even got no home? You know what I'm saying? How you enjoy homecoming, you ain't got no home? Listen, my boy Jeff McKissick, I here help you in the process so you can really truly enjoy homecoming, because you talking about homecoming, but you ain't got no home to go home to. Listen, Jeff is going to help you out, man. He's a Texas licensed loan officer with Fairway Independent Mortgage Company, and he'll guide you seamlessly through the home buying process. Hey, many of us are unaware of our credit score, true financial situations, but Jeff will help you develop a step-by-step plan to help you improve your financial standing, making your dream of owning a home achievable sooner than you think. See, he understands your financial situation may not be perfect, but it's okay. All right. The sooner you start the conversation, the sooner you're able to solve those problems like student loan debt, right? Like credit issues, right? So don't let your fear of achieving new heights hold you back from getting the home of your dreams. Perfect for your growing family and for hosting those watch parties, or for a place to go home to after homecoming. Like, you need a place to come home to, right? You know what I'm saying? So don't wait, right? Get started now and taking the first steps towards your new home and taking the next big step in your life. So don't delay. Talk with Jeff today so you can be in your home tomorrow, and he looks forward to speaking with you soon. So all I'm trying to say, right, all y'all trying to enjoy homecoming, but you ain't got no home to come to. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, you ain't got no home to go to, right? You feel me? My boy Jeff can help you out. So go and hit up my boy Jeff, right? You know what I'm saying? And he'll help you on your way. With that being said, man, I'm gonna bring up my co-host. Y'all know what to do. No slacking. The swag is in the building. What's going on, my guy? Appreciate you for stopping through. The Truth Seeker, hey man, he's been a subscriber for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate your shouts out to you, Texas. And listen, I ain't gonna, I slightly hurt for Texas Southern, because I'm like, bro, they had everything laid on the plate early in this year, and they just got injury after injury after injury. You know, my guy, if y'all don't know, right, my guy Isaiah, you know what I'm saying, like one of the starting linebackers for, you know what I'm saying, for TSU, like that's my guy, right? You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, it definitely sucks for them, right, that they got a couple of their guys, a couple of the big guys hurt early in the year. So it's like, man, you can't even see the full ability of what this year could have been for them. Everything's still in front of them, but it's gonna be super tough, man. But yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. But listen, I'm PV through and through. So at the end of the day, like, hey, it is what it is, right? But I hate it just had to be injuries, though. You know what I'm saying? I want you to lose, but I want you to lose with your full squad, okay? I want everybody to be there. All right. You know what I'm saying? I want you to lose because your people ain't there. That's my thing. So, but with that being said, it's not over. It's not over. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. All right. We still got the Wild Out TV shirts. They still there. All right. It ain't over yet. But we ain't there yet. We ain't there yet. First of all, how was y'all weekend? How was y'all homecoming? There was a lot of events, not just on campus, right? But you know what I'm saying? People be doing big things all in Houston area too. So, you know, I love PVU had a lot of events going on. Man, how was y'all homecoming, man? Coach, I know you was on campus. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you probably rubbing shoulders with Chad Johnson and stuff, you know, because I know you got credentials like that. You know what I mean? But how was your homecoming, Coach Kerry, man? Let me know.
Man, I had I would say a decent time up there. Actually, my weekend looked like my son team won. Unfortunate for him. So they played whatever night they played. Two of Prairie View's coaches are there. So it's Coach McDowell and the defensive coordinator there. For some reason, he didn't start the game, but I don't get all into that. So he gave up the first completion he gave up all year happened to be a touchdown right in front of Coach McDowell. So look, I text Coach McDowell. I'm like, hey man, bad luck. This is the first completion he gave up all year. But you know, moving forward, went to the game. My son came up on a visit. We had another family friend that came up with us, and you know, the environment was good. Unfortunately, it was hot as I don't know what out there. Yeah. And you know, it was good. I didn't see any incidents the whole while I was there. I saw a lot of guys that played for him. I did see Chad Johnson, but I didn't get a chance to take a picture with him. I'm you know, sometimes I'm that guy that's gonna let people be when they get outside of the football arena and they not, I know he just want to enjoy the game. So I didn't even try to take a picture with him or, all that kind of stuff. So, but it was a great environment. Unfortunately, we still got to do something to get the fans more involved on some of those big third downs, especially when we're on defense. And I'll put it to you like this. So we had another family friend that came to the game with us. And at halftime, he pretty much asked my wife, could they leave the game because he was bored.
Mm.
Prairie View was winning at the time too, so it's not like we down by a lot. Let's leave. He just said he was bored because the fans wasn't in the game.
Yeah, that's bad.
That is bad.
That's no win, man. And I think that's definitely something that's real. I mean, and listen, we had some explosive plays in this game too, right? So really, it's like a game that you should have really been into. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, Miss Carey, how was your weekend, man? How was your homecoming? How did you set it out?
Well, it was a long homecoming because I started Thursday with my frat brothers. We were celebrating one of the lines that I pledged, and so it was pretty interesting. We did that, in Houston, but then Friday came down, and they kept me up too late, and that's a lot of walking. I ended up sitting down, but they were out. It was funny because I guess it's a new rule that in the RV area, they're going to have some kind of quiet time. You can't have the DJ or something like that. And it was funny. Saturday night, the police came through with the big cruiser, with the big SUV and the four-wheelers, and made everybody move because I was in the middle of Q Nation and they were over there. And they made everybody disperse. And I guess they got rid of the DJ. Those young people went and found the biggest motorcycle with the biggest stereo. I thought it was another DJ. That thing was so loud. They were on the ground. They were dancing, kicking up dirt. It was more crowded than it was when they first made them disperse. And it was just like, and if I just can't eat, one of my frat brothers brought this big pan of filthy rice. Oh, man, I can't. I ate so much of that filthy rice, boy. I just.
Not filthy rice, not dirty rice, filthy rice.
No, it's filthy rice. It had some extra in it. So it was good, fish everywhere, just people everywhere. But yeah, coach is right. That game was hot. And had some friends there. And they came down. Hadn't been to PV since, let's see, 84 and 86. So they were in shock. So shout out to my friends, Linda and Carol, came to the game. First time they've been there, and they really enjoyed it. So they're going to be repeat customers. But yeah, the crowd was interesting. I couldn't believe, like, when Burns caught the touchdown, it just was quiet. I was like, wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So they played
tough
hard,
crowd, right?
Nothing. Yeah.
Tough crowd. I think you gotta say this, like, tough. Like one of them comedians, right? You know what I'm saying? They like realize, oh, that joke didn't go over like I thought it was gonna go over. Man, it's crazy though. But yeah, I mean, I watched back that and I know we're gonna get into it a little bit later, but I had a chance to watch back that Southern and Florida A&M game, and that's one thing that specifically that I just remember, and you could hear it, right? Because that FAMU crowd wasn't a crazy huge crowd, right? You know what I'm saying, for that game against Southern, but you could hear the announcer, right? Like, hey, it's third down, it's time to make some noise, right? You know what I mean? And you can hear the crowd starting to get riled up, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just like, man, those are the little things that, again, help to get your crowd to the point that you want it to be, right? You know what I mean? So that you could actually, again, we talk about it, have home field advantage, right? You know what I'm saying? And if you want to have home field advantage, those are some things that, you got to do. You got to get the fan base involved, and you got to think. To me, you got to just think of the whole 9 yards at the end of the day to figure out how do we get, the fan base involved. So, but yeah, it is what it is, man. But Other than that, man, I'm happy that the week was done. I feel like it was a lot of great football played this last week, and I feel like every week from now on, it's gonna get tighter and tighter, man. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna get tighter and tighter. So, definitely interested. Finding out more. Q said he was on. He agreed with Northern's family friend. He was on the field. It was no energy from the stands. I can't understand it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So he said he can't understand. Mr. Hunt said he checking in from Monroe, Louisiana, hometown. But with that being said, hey man, let's get to it. I want to know this week, man, who are you guys winners and who are you guys losers from week 9?
Well, I'll go. My winner was Alabama State to be able to win a rivalry, a classic game against in-state school. Alabama State gonna be my winner of the week, and my loser of the week, I think I'm gonna go with either A&M for losing to a 4-string quarterback or Grambling for not being able to pick up a win on the road. And I understand their quarterback got hurt early in the game, but I don't think anybody expected Grambling not to win that game.
Yeah, and I think I go to winner Alabama State as well, because that's a big game and you can throw the records out for that game. So, and I just thought Alabama A&M would come out a little harder with Maynard being on the line. And then I think biggest loser, I'll go with Grambling as well, because they start off the game playing really hard, but Texas Southern just jumped all over them. So I think, they controlled their destiny and Grambling just kind of gave it away. Like, I don't know. So that's my loser.
Mm-hmm. As far as the biggest winner this week, I definitely think it has to be, Alabama State, because obviously they were able to stay in that East race, right? This Alabama State, Alabama A&M game, we talked about it last week, was huge, because whoever won that game, you're really only talking about them having one loss, right, in the East, and both of them have either FAM or a Jackson left on their schedule. So they really were in a great position to still be able to say, hey, man, I got a shot at still winning this division if things can kind of fall right, as far as kind of how the other things fall in place, as far as how many points we win by, et cetera, right? Because you start getting those tiebreaker, things. So Alabama State has to be the big winner, to take care of this rivalry game, right? Because in the day, rivalry games can always be interesting, right? You know what I'm saying? And so for them to be able to take care of that game, I think it's super big. Biggest loser, listen, Maynard. All right, not even Alabama A&M. I think Maynard is the biggest loser, because at the end of the day, this is the big one, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and to lose 3 years in a row, you know what I mean? I think that's hard. That's gonna be hard. And I really thought, they had some momentum they could build off of the last couple of weeks, and maybe offensively they have maybe found a spark. But that Alabama State defense, man, is really tough, and really they didn't really get going into really the fourth quarter as far as getting points on the board. So, I mean, kind of similar to that Jackson State game, where the final score isn't really indicative of kind of how much Alabama State dominated that game, because they just don't score as much as Jackson, right? But it it really wasn't a close game. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even say Alabama A&M, right? I say Coach Maynard, right? That's a big loss for him, because it's almost like, man, you can't lose to your rival 3 years in a row in front of 70,000, 69K plus.
It was insane.
On ESPN.
Oh, wow.
On national television too, 3 years in a row. That's my biggest loser from the week, right? But with that being said, man, let's get into this week's schedule. I want to pull up, this up and just check out 2 games in the CAA, Hampton and North Carolina A&T. Just briefly mention them. Hampton with the 41-21 win over Elon, from this past week, which I think was really interesting, because you talk about an Elon team that Now, no matter how you look at it, right? Elon, at the end of the day, they beat North Carolina Central pretty handily, right? You know what I'm saying? And so for them to get this 41-21 win over Elon, I think was pretty big for them, pretty big for their program, right? Any of these CAA games that they can get, I think are big, right? They're 2-2 in conference, 5-3 right now in a year. You 12 of 17 for 62 yards and a touchdown from Mays, the quarterback position. Snipes 18 carries, 106 yards and a touchdown, on the ground. And so they really were able to get the ball, get it done really on the ground with 274 yards total. Rushing only 104 yards through the air. But they were also able to hold Elon to negative 14 yards rushing, right? Negative 14 yards rushing, and that's on 27 carries, by the way, right? So obviously they were able to, control completely from a defensive standpoint, the line of scrimmage, and only 196 yards through the air for Elon. And so again, 41-21 victory for Hampton there. And then North Carolina A&T 21-7 loss to Campbell. I think this probably was their biggest opportunity probably on their schedule right now the rest of the way to get a win, because I don't think there's anyone else on their schedule that you even would think that they were favored over, you know what I'm saying? Outside of this game against Campbell, which also was coming into it winless in the conference, but they lost that game 21-7. Any thoughts on either one of these games?
Well, I think a little bit going back to the first game. Sometimes it's just about a mindset of going into it, where you may have a Elon team that's looking down on a quote unquote HBCU. So sometimes, like if you get off to a good start and you win the certain battles, the turnover battle, or rush and different things like that, it gives you a good chance to win. So, like I say, sometimes some people may call them a trap game, but sometimes those games will end up being the ones that you can win. So it doesn't surprise me at all sometimes when one team that's not very good on paper beats another team that everybody think just gonna walk in and win the football game.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the North Carolina A&T game just shows, and it's no slight against the opponent, but I'm just saying against Campbell. But wow, that just shows the North Carolina A&T team that I remember or know, would have stumped Campbell, but they really lost their edge. So that's what I found was one of the interesting games in that conference.
I saw the press conference, or the comment from one of the press conference this past week, right? I don't know if you guys saw it, where they asked I forgot the coach's name, right? But they asked coach essentially, like, is he the right guy for the job? You know what I'm saying? And essentially, he just said yes, right? Responded yes. And then I think the athletic director, right, yelled out, like, I agree, right? You know what I'm saying? It seems like there's obviously some pressure from the A&T faithful that's turning up, because also through the grapevine, we're hearing now that there may be that they might be moving back to the MEAC as far as just being football only, moving back to the MEAC. And so it seems like they are not very happy, right, with where they are, from a football standpoint, side of things. And I think that's interesting when you talk about, when Coach mentioned last week about, the stories that we're gonna be talking about in the future Northern Lights, right? Hearing a coach, I don't think have you ever in your experience in just HBCU football heard a coach in that manner? We hear this on the PWI level all the time, especially FBS, right? That's like nothing. That's like a nothing question. That's almost like an every week question, depending on your program, right? But in the HBCU world, that almost like was so out, right? You know what I'm saying? Have you ever heard of a question like that to a coach and it was like a in-house press conference too, right? It wasn't even like it ain't like a MEAC press conference, right? It's like in-house.
Well, sometimes at some of those schools, they have that press conference like on a Monday or Tuesday, where a coach may speak to some of the former players or some of the boosters, and it's called a press conference, but it's really almost like a state of the team type of deal. But what else do you expect that guy to say besides, yes, I think I'm the right guy? Because things can turn in a hurry. You get one good win and momentum start changing.
Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't expect that guy to say anything else. But yes, I am the right guy for the job.
Right.
I mean, he's supposed to say that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wouldn't expect him to say anything different. It was almost a shock to even hear somebody even ask that question. You know what I mean? I guess that was the biggest thing. For me, is like, wow, like somebody actually
me too.
asked that question at the coach, like at a press conference. That was interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
not gonna say anything.
Man, with that being said, go ahead, Kerry.
No, I just said he wouldn't say anything else different, and but I did see that clip, and I was like, he made me want to go. Yeah, he asked me that.
Yeah. So with that being said, man, I want to get into some of these MEAC and SWAC scores from this past week. We're gonna start with the MEAC conference. Obviously, it was we really getting into the heat of MEAC play now, right? As well. And we'll start off first and foremost with Norfolk State. Old Dawson Odoms, you know what I'm saying? Getting a victory right against Howard, 21-20. Any thoughts about that? Because we talked earlier a little bit about kind of where he was. You know what I'm saying? What's your thoughts on this win for Dawson Odoms? Because obviously he took the loss to North Carolina Central, but now he's sitting at 1-1 in conference. And got a hill to climb, right? But listen, it's a lot better to finish third or second or third than fourth or fifth, right? You know what I'm saying? So, what's your thoughts on Dawson Odoms and getting this big victory over Howard this past weekend?
You good?
Okay, I thought, 2 weeks ago we had dug the hole and threw the dirt on Odoms, and it kind of reminded me of that story of the Bible. We kept throwing the dirt, and Odoms kept stepping on top of it. So he showed, hey, I ain't buried yet. So he's 1-1. He's in the thick of it. So say what you want. You never know where he can go from this point. I thought it was a good win. So I'm fascinated to see which direction he's going. I don't know if Howard maybe overlooked them a little bit, but that was a gritty win. And I just want to see what happens from this point. But it's cool for him to be in the thick of it. I want to see how that happens, but I don't know. I guess when Coach Northern talks, I wonder if him finishing middle of the pack and he's had some time to get his people in there, is that still good enough, or is he still looking at the hot seat if he finishes in the middle of the pack?
Yeah, like I say, I'm a big fan of Coach Odoms, just from knowing him when he was in the conference and coaching against him. And sometime when I would go home, stopping by the office, just having conversations. So I always pull for him. I don't know if, depending on, I guess, how they finish in the conference, if that's going to be enough to satisfy some of the power brokers of Norfolk State football. So we'll see. But that's a big win for him, and hopefully they'll stay above the Mendoza line, as they say, when it comes to that program.
Man,
above the Mendoza line.
Wow.
That's interesting. So hey man, talk about the stats from this game, really briefly. Total yards, 371 total yards for Howard, 287 total yards for Norfolk. You talk about one turnover for Howard, which was a fumble, which was an interception that was thrown. Both teams is pretty well as far as penalties, both under 40 yards, and 212 rushing yards for Howard, 170 rushing yards for Norfolk, 159 passing yards Howard, 117 yards for Norfolk State. My question is, does this change anything as far as how you feel toward Norfolk versus a South Carolina State, which is the next other team that they would have to face in this conference? They're in a similar position, for example, to like Alabama State, right? Which, hey, everything's still in front of us. If we can beat South Carolina State, for example, and say South Carolina State beats North Carolina Central, well, now we've created a three-way tie. We got an opportunity, at least, right, with some tiebreakers to win this conference. Did this game change anything, for you in terms of that?
Nah, I don't think so.
No, not me. That's a tough hill to climb for them. Even though they didn't score a lot on Morgan State, North Carolina Central defense is not like that. So no, it didn't change anything for me.
I got you. Yeah, I don't think it changed in my mind either as well. And speaking of South Carolina State, man, big victory over Delaware State, 69-35. I mean, talking about raining points on guys in this conference. South Carolina State able to put up a lot of yardage in this game. Eric Phoenix, of course, 341 total yards and 4 touchdowns, 18 for 21 passing. I mean, talk about efficiency, right? You know what I'm saying? And Caden High, 4 catches, 132 yards and a touchdown. You also had Elijah Carter with 6 catches, 114 yards and a touchdown. You had Justin Smith-Brown with 7 catches, 99 yards and a touchdown. And Nigel Johnson, meager 4 for 67 and a touchdown. But listen, boys was putting up numbers through the air, a total of 477 total yards through the air, 150 yards on the ground as well. Dondre Duhart had 2 touchdowns. And when you talk about Delaware State, Jaden Sutton, 15 carries, 150 yards, so 10 yards a pop, and 3 touchdowns for him. So he had himself a great game, 196 total yards on the ground for Delaware State. They was able to put up 35 points. But listen, they were down 49-14 at halftime. So this game was completely out of reach. You know what I'm saying? Really, you can say after the first quarter, it's 28-7, right? You know what I'm saying? Then it's 21-7 in the second quarter, 49-14 at halftime. But man, South Carolina State, each and every week, I feel like confidence just builds more and more for this team. And obviously it's their first conference game, able to take care of Delaware State here. Feel like they've definitely lodged themselves as the clear contender to North Carolina Central. Do you see it any other way except let me ask this question to you, Coach. You always come into the season wanting to win the championship, right? You know what I'm saying? No matter where you are, obviously, no matter whether you are starting from scratch with 50 freshmen you bringing in, right? No matter where you got a whole bunch of guys come back, your real goal really is you want to win the championship, right? But does the first 6-7 games now for South Carolina State really change the mindset as far as like, hey, listen, it's not like we got to build this year 1 to year 2, and then, hey, year 3, we going to definitely get the job done. I mean, they're literally right there. Like, from a mindset standpoint, from just that room, right, with the coaches, with the players, like, what is going on? What's the mindset, of this team right now when it's like, listen, you don't got to wait the year 2. You don't gotta wait till year 2, right? You ain't got to work the kinks out because you came with a lot of guys from Benedict who coming up to this level. No, you can actually win this thing right now. You ain't got to wait. We can go and get the championship and solidify, Coach Chinsbury for what people already believed he was.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. You don't have the 3-year window now because now you're seeing guys, coaches getting fired in their second year, midway through the third year. So it's build through the portal and let's get this thing done right away. And he had, I think, a distinct advantage that he had was, number one, he was coaching in that state already and had a good program. And then he brought a lot of guys with him. So now a lot of the guys that's been with him, I would say for at least 2 years, they are pretty much coaches on the field. So I think he had a distinct advantage over some guys that took over programs where they had to move from out of state or try to build. When you bring a lot of guys with you, almost like Dion said, he brought luggage with him, and his luggage is paying off.
That's big, man. Kerry, I mean, this program has. I mean, this is a program that's used to winning, right? This is not like this is a program that is used to using. They had a guy named Buddy Pugh there, right? Yes. You know what I'm saying? They had guys there that know how to develop talent and NFL quality talent, by the way, right?
Right.
How does it got to feel to be a South Carolina State fan and alumni right now, seeing that, hey, we came in, because I look at South Carolina State as if they're the Steelers of HBCU football, right? A program that has only had a handful of coaches, right, who give guys time to build, but yet in year 1, it seemed like man, this is really the hand in glove fit that we believe it really was. Because like coaches mentioned, right? I mean, talking about being right up the road, you recruiting the same literal area you already recruiting, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you literally are just moving from one house to another, but we're in the same neighborhood, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did this program how did the fans of this program got to feel right now? You know what I'm saying? Knowing that they are 5 days away, 4 days away now from possibly being literally at the front of the pack to win the MEAC this year.
Yeah, at the front. Yeah, and they got to feel like they made a good decision bringing Coach in, and they got to feel good that they didn't have to be paid, because everybody looked at it as rebuilding year, and now they're looking at it like, hey, we're in the thick of it, and we can take this thing. So I'm thinking their biggest challenge is going to be North Carolina Central. Before the season started, I thought that their challenge would be Morgan because of the defense, but both of those teams kind of remind me of the Steelers. They like to bloody you up a little bit, but I think they're still the bullies of the MEAC. It's going to be interesting to see what's real when they run up against North Carolina Central.
Yeah, I think, hey, listen, that game is coming up this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the show. But before we get to the SWAC, North Carolina Central 16-7 victory over Morgan State. Obviously, Morgan's defense able to keep them in this game, right? Feel like it was similar to that FAM and Southern game from this past weekend. But obviously, just not enough offense, right, for Morgan State. How does this game make you feel about Central? Does this change your mind at all about Central? Obviously, we know Morgan is always a team that plays you tough, right, and a team that plays tight defense. But how does it make you feel going into this upcoming Thursday game when Central got to go to a South Carolina State?
Well, it's just a football game. Say in order to win some championships, you have to win those games, those close games where your offense might not be clicking, or you might, if you're a defensive team, you might have to win some shootouts. So that's a typical, I would say, performance from Morgan's defense. Unfortunately, they're not getting enough from their offense. But like I tell Coach Sewell when he and I talk, there's nothing wrong with defense scoring. So, you almost have to turn into a competition where see if the defense can outscore the offense, or give the offense a real short field where it's easier for them to score the football if they're struggling.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And I think they sometimes you need that grit, because easily winning, doesn't toughen you up as much as a close game, because some of those games when you get toward the end, rivalry games, or say like if it was playoff game or trying to get to the championship, those games, the other team is just as tough as you. So you need these kind of games where people have to dig in, and it's not easy. You're having tough conversations on the sideline, man. We got to get this. Those are the things that build the character of your team.
Nah, that's real, man. So let's get it on, man. Let's talk about the SWAC right here, right? We already mentioned one of these games, Alabama State over Alabama A&M, 27-19. Again, that game wasn't as close as the final score, right? You had two scores, in the fourth quarter, right? That kind of made this game a little bit tighter than what it was. I think Alabama State was up like 24-3, and I think Alabama A&M scored two touchdowns, went for 2 extra points, right? So it made it 27-19. But the game really was in hand for Alabama State throughout this whole game, and they again, right, are in prime position to again have a chance to shock the SWAC if they can continue to win and also take care of Jackson, right, later on the season. Any thoughts from this game, Coach? How do you feel? Eddie Rodman and the Hornets are looking, going into the last 4 games of their season. Last 5.
Well, I always said, have a defense that it'll travel. Like I said, I thought Alabama A&M would put up more points, to be honest with you, and I thought Alabama A&M's defense would play better, knowing that you pretty much have to stop the running game. But the part of the game that I did see, Alabama State completed a couple of short passes that turned into some longer passes, and they completed a bootleg for a touchdown. So they did a good job of not making the quarterback having to read a whole lot. Like this, you read high, low, inside out, make it easy throws for the quarterback. So I was surprised by that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I expected.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Kerry, on Key and how he's been playing? Because like Coach saying, it's like they're making it simple for him, but he was very efficient this game. 14 of 20, under 131 yards, right? But 2 touchdowns.
Yes. I think he got a lot of help from the running back, Kinsey. He had averaged 8.7 yards a carry, so that lets you know you didn't get behind the chains a lot. And when you can run the ball, open up that passing game, you don't have to throw for 300 yards all the time. If it opens it up and you only have to make a 7-8 yard pass to make the first down, or even sometime a 4-yard pass, you dump it to the tight end and you keep the chains moving. So sometimes you're not going to have a high yardage game like that. And with good defense to back you, then, you know, that's kind of hard, because I know they held Langford on the other side to 3 yards a carry, which means that, you know, those guys were behind the sticks a lot. You're looking at a lot of 3rd and 8s and things like that. So those can be a little tougher because you end up making a 7-yard pass, it's still 4th down. So those are the kind of situations you find yourself getting into with that kind of game. But all he needed to do was be steady that game, and with no interceptions, he took care of the ball. So that made the efficiency even better.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, you know, to be able to get 2 turnovers off of Alabama A&M, again, Coach talked about it with the Morgan State, right? If you can't score, if you can give us some short fields, which means the offense is in scoring position, that's going to help a lot, right? And so, you know, they were able to do that this game. And also, they held Alabama A&M to only 2.3 yards per rush, right? And that's on 27 rushing attempts. So, you know, when you're able to hold the team to less than 3 yards, you know, a carry, you're going to win a lot of those games, right? And so, you know, when you look at the total yardage, it looks pretty close, and even in Alabama A&M's favor. But again, I feel like a lot of that was kind of, you know, I won't call it garbage time, right? But a lot of it was really late in the game, after the game is really in hand, you know, for Alabama State. But they really were able to take care of the game and really get the job done. Rodney here says Kareem Key 68% completion percentage in the past 2 games with 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, right? And at the end of the day, if you can take care of the ball, you know, that's really key. That's the same thing I've been saying recently about, you know, Jaden Johnson. It's like, hey, if he protects the ball and doesn't give the ball away, you know, it puts you in a lot better position, right? Because you can't score if you keep giving the ball to the other team. Okay, that's just the reality. Now, moving on, talk about this UAPB game, 35-21 over Mississippi Valley. Now, I think this game was 21-21 going into the 4th quarter, right? And it looked like Valley had done a pretty good job, right, of kind of keeping UAPB at bay. I hadn't went back and watched this game as of yet, right? So I didn't get to see the floor of the game as of yet to kind of see how it got to that point into the 4th quarter. But, you know, Mekhi Hagens had the 2 rushing touchdowns, and then obviously UAPB was able to score 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter to really, you know, win this game. Any thoughts on this game with UAPB? And obviously UAPB now is 2-2 in the SWAC West, right? So they're still in great position to win the West, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they have a chance, right, to get that job done. They have some games coming up, you know, against a Texas Southern, right? You know, left on their schedule or against a Southern, right? So they have a chance to win some games if they win them, right? That actually puts them in a really key position, right, to actually win the West side of the division. Any thoughts on UAPB and his victory against Valley this past weekend?
Nah, it probably comes down to the fact that UAPB has either played close or won some games, so they probably have a little bit more confidence than Valley. So, you know, be honest, it's like certain games I don't spend a lot of time either looking at or watching unless that's pretty much the only thing. Like a game like that, I wouldn't pay much attention to. But Pine Bluff is you know, they still scratching. I like their head coach, but you know, we'll have to see where it's going to end up at the end of the day. Can they pull a couple more wins out? So we'll see.
I got you. Kerry, any thoughts?
My only thought for this game was UAPB was pretty balanced in this game. However, it's once again it was the quarterback, pretty much leading the charge on the rushing. So
right,
maybe that's just what their identity is going to be. And Valley, they took care of the ball, but they just couldn't get enough points to get past UAPB. So they just haven't won yet. Like Coach said, it's tough to really follow them because they just can't seem to squeeze that. They just don't have enough ammunition to get over that hump. So, but it was an interesting game and flow, and it makes it interesting that I know people say it's Valley, but it's not like they don't try to win as well. So it is interesting to see how UAPB came to life here as the season goes on. So I'd like to see how that goes, as they kind of can control their own destiny going forward.
Yeah, and I mean they've been in games, right? It's not as if UAPB has not been in games, right? They've been in games, against Graham, against Alcorn, right? Obviously, they beat PV, they beat Valley here. So, they're just as much in the thick of these games as anyone else, right? I don't think when I look at this team that I would say that, they're going to get blown out by a Southern or by a Texas Southern, right? I think they're going to be in those games, right, and have a chance to win those games. And so I feel like it's still so wide open on this side of the division, right, to where, you really can't say who's going to win the division yet, right? You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of football left to play. I will say it's super interesting that, you always think about basketball when you talk about how many, what did you score and assist on, right? Like how many points, right, were, touched your hand. And Jerry Williams, I mean, outside of 60 rush yards, all of the offensive yardage came through him, whether through the pass or on the ground. And I feel like there's just a lot to have on one individual, one young man. I think they got to figure out a way to get some more guys into their, offensive game plan, especially on the ground. Or I don't really think you're going to be able to get the job done just being a one man. It's not like high school ball, right? Where it's like you just have one dynamic athlete and kind of like literally win games on the back of one person, right? Like you really got to figure out how to get other guys involved. And so until that happens, I think they're going to have trouble. So keeping it moving though, Grambling and Texas Southern, man. And I think this one was an interesting, came down to the fourth quarter, 24-17. Texas Southern gets the victory. Obviously this game, Miles Crawley did get nicked up and get hurt. And I mean, we've been talking about it earlier in the season. Miles Crawley's been getting hit left and right. Like he's been taking a lot of punishment throughout this year. And it seems like it kind of really caught up to him early in this game. He had to go out. And so obviously Graham brought in DJ Bailey, and also Ashton Fry also was 1 for 1 for 4 yards. But total, man, only 102 passing yards for Graham, right? Only 102 passing yards, 154 rushing yards on the ground. And then you talk about Texas Southern, 177 pass yards, 192 rushing yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. And Jace Wilson actually had 12 carries for 78 yards. And so he got a chance after being a SWAC preseason, second team, right? Not playing through the first couple games. These last 2 games, being able to kind of come on and be able to show what he can do. Any thoughts on Texas Southern right now? And it's a team that I feel like, man, if they were healthy, you'll feel a lot different about. But they have so many guys that have been injured that it kind of like it really, and that lost to Texas Southern. I mean, that lost to Southern. You got to think Texas Southern is 3-1 in the West if they close out that game against Southern. Just think about that, right? I keep thinking about Coach saying how some of these ugly losses, ugly wins can get a coach fired, right? Or I mean, he's still remains, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's like that loss hurts so bad for this team because you're literally looking at 3-1 right now in conference in the West, right? If you close that game out, and instead of being 3-1, they're now 2-2, right? But what's your thoughts, man, on Texas Southern? What's your thoughts on Grambling right now? Seems like they're really reeling, man. 1-3, They're at the bottom of the SWAC West in 6th place now.
Well, part of it is they struggling protecting a quarterback. So if you look, the quarterback's numbers don't look bad, except the yards per attempt or yards per completion. So that means the quarterbacks are probably trying to get the ball out of their hand real fast because they don't have time to make the downfield read unless they just get the ball out of their hands. But for Texas Southern you like to say if you can get over 150 to 175 yards rushing, your chance to win and go up. For them to be able to run the ball against a Grambling defense that had been getting a lot of takeaways, especially early in the season, that's big for them. So, like I say, I think we thought it was going to be a close game, but I don't think a lot of people would have put money on Texas Southern winning the game, though.
Well, I thought Texas Southern was gonna win the game. I ain't gonna lie, you know what I'm saying. But I mean, I feel like Grambling's. No, I mean I did because I really feel like Grambling outside of early in the season they got a lot of turnovers, man. But it seemed like when they aren't able to turn the ball over and get those short fields, the offense has had trouble, really driving the ball down the field and really scoring consistently. And I think Texas Southern wants to just grind you out. They want to just grind the ball on the ground. And it's so interesting, even listening to this game, watching that game back and seeing at the end of the first half, hearing the announcers talk about, man, I would just run this ball out, right? You know what I'm saying? Now they had when they first started their drive, they had over a minute, left. I think that was close to the 40-yard line, close to midfield, you know what I mean? So I'm like, why are they even talking about that? And literally, they had the big pass play for the touchdown, right, to go up 14-3. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, why y'all talking about run? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're almost at the 50-yard line. You got a chance to get in field goal range. You got a chance to put some points on the board. And, yeah, they was able to score, man, and really push that lead to 14-3. So, again, this is another team that's still in a good position, to get the job done. The question for Texas Southern, I feel like, is almost like the same question that you got. I feel like the same question you got for Morgan or for Alcorn is like, can they generate enough offense? You feel like they're going to play well enough on defense to stay in games? Can they generate enough offense, right, to get these victories they need to get down the stretch? They have 4 games left. One of those games against FAMU next week, right? So you probably say that, hey, that's a loss. So with those last 3 games, can they take care of business in those 3 games against an Alcorn, right? That they still have on their schedule. I think they still have a UAPB on their schedule. And that game looks like that game could have a lot more on the line, right, on the last game of the season. And so, how it's going to be coming down the stretch. But I feel like the West is going to be so interesting coming down the stretch every week from now on, right? So the next game, looking at FAM and Southern, Mr. Carey, what was your thoughts on this game? I don't know if you was able to see it. I watched this game back as well. And I think this is one where Southern just was able to keep themselves in the game they just held on for defensively as long as possible, but just couldn't generate any scoring, man, to really take this victory. But what's your thoughts on this 24-6 victory by FAMU?
I expected FAM to win. I was surprised they held Southern down like that. I didn't get to see the game because still at homecoming, and those young people, they choked off all the internet, so I couldn't. I kept trying to get in my ESPN app and try to see it, look on you. I couldn't get any data, so I wanted to go back and rewatch that game to see how we ended up with that kind of score. I thought it would be a closer game, to be honest. So I'm just surprised at that, and Southern as well kind of controlled their destiny, and so I thought it would have been a bigger fight with that game. And so I wanted to go back and see, who actually impacted that game the most. But it sounded like it might have been one of those ugly FAMU games where they kind of were battling it out till things opened up for them late in the game.
Hello? Oh, sound like you went out. Yeah. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Yes,
awesome. Coach, man, what was your thoughts on your alma mater, man? Going down to Bragg, was really in that game. I feel like, obviously that punt return really hurt. Jamari Gaston had that punt return to put them up 7-3. But because I feel like they had the momentum after that turnover when they were driving the field, had that turnover early on. You can feel the momentum, almost like, man, it's about to be another Rabbit's Foot game, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But FAMU was able to get that return, and I feel like since after that, right, they kind of slowly but surely able to add points here, right? Points on the drive there just to increase that lead. And really, the defense just choked out them, especially through the air, right? They really wasn't able to get any momentum through the air, even though they was able to kind of move the ball a little bit on the ground. So, what was your thoughts on this game overall?
Well, the part of the game that I got to see was mostly the second half. Just the missed opportunity that Southern had on some of the deeper throws, the overthrows that they had, if you throw it to the middle of the field versus up the field, different things like that. Then on defense, they blew a coverage. The cornerback carried a post route too far, and then they came with a wheel route out behind the post and had an easy, wide open touchdown. And then one of my favorite players missed a tackle where they probably would have tackled FAM 2 yards short of the touchdown. And when he missed the tackle, the guy ended up scoring. So, like I say, 2 blown coverages. If you take those points off the board and then give Southern maybe one of those big passes that they miss, a wide open wide receiver, it's a totally different ballgame. But like I say, it didn't happen that way, and they end up losing the game. But I think they're gonna be back to the drawing board at the quarterback position. Biden didn't play well, and his backup came in and didn't play well. You can tell that kid is probably still a little bit hurt, but I think they're gonna be back to the drawing board trying to see how can they generate a few more points from the passing game.
No, that definitely makes sense. I definitely can see that as far as because I think Noah Biden only had 45 yards passing, right? TSET came in and didn't do much better, right? 3 of 9 for 38 yards, so only 83 yards through the air. But like you said, a lot of it was missed. He was Biden was 8 for 18. TSET 3 for 9, right? And there was a lot of just misses. I talk about it like every week with PV, right? It's like, man, if you could just connect on some of those overthrows, I mean, you ain't got to even connect on 100% of them. Like, let's just connect on 40% of them, right?
Yes.
It's a different game, right? It's a different season. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like the same thing with Southern from this past weekend, man. If they could have just connected, on through the air, to change a lot. Because I feel like they were able to really move the ball a little bit on the ground. It's just, man, not able to connect here and there, passing. That would have, to me, opened it up, right? Because now, if you're able to now kind of move the ball a little bit through the air, now you're even going to be to run the ball a lot more effectively, right? Because now FAM has to watch for that. And I think total they only had 12 first downs for Southern this past game, and FAM used 21 and 2 of 16 on third down. So that kind of let you know how the game went, right?
The other thing you have to look at too,
go ahead,
was FAMU's quarterback kept a whole lot of plays alive, whether it was in the passing game or maybe a design run or two here or there. But I mean, they would get back there to him, and then he would buy a couple more seconds and either run for the first down or find somebody downfield wide open. So he did a good job keeping the plays alive and making success out of some plays where they got pressure. He made something positive for his team.
Yes.
No, that's big. Yeah, Daniel Richardson definitely had a good game. They had that 1 turnover, but 2 touchdowns, right? And over 250 passing yards. I mean, he just continued to be steady through the air, right? To get the job done. And with that said, man, Jackson versus Bethune-Cookman. This one was 17-17 at halftime. It reminded me of the old SWAC, right? When you're at the stadium on campus, and then at halftime you get to hear all the scores of the game, and then you hear that Jackson 17, Bethune 17. It's like, oh, what's going on over there? Right? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of reminded me of right when I first saw the score pop up. But then second half, Jackson obviously handled business, scored 20 consecutive to win this game 37-17. Irv Mulligan, 171 yards, 2 tubs. Any thoughts on this game for Jackson? Obviously, after that big victory against FAM, it kind of makes a little sense, right? That in the first half, you kind of come out a little sluggish, and don't kind of because really the last couple of games, they've come out strong in the first half, and they kind of in the back end kind of slowed down. This game, it kind of was a reverse. But any thoughts on this game before we get to the PV commerce?
Yeah, my only thought is Irv Mulligan. He just, the passing, was nominal, less than 150 yards, but Mulligan just really, when you can run like that, and he had 171 by himself. When you can run like that, then you're controlling the time of possession. And it's an issue when that's extra defense you have when you can control the clock by just running the ball like that. So, kudos to him for making that game so, dominant toward the Jackson State side.
Yeah, I think that's another one of those games where the mindset comes in. Jackson coming off a big win and then go and play against a team that has one win. So it probably took a minute for them to say, hey, man, these guys shouldn't be this close. Let's go out here and show them who we really are. So, you can say halftime adjustments, but the halftime adjustment probably was almost like, what the hell y'all doing? Let's go out here and show these boys who we really are.
Halftime adjustments is if y'all don't make this adjustment, now we're going to be adjusting something when we get back to campus, right? You know what I'm saying? That's it. All right. So, hey, coach, man, we need a new scheme. The new scheme is go in there and do exactly what you're supposed to be doing. All right. You know what I'm saying? Man, let's get to it, man. We got the call lines open to 516-2534-34, 516-253-3434. If you got any thoughts, any comments on this past weekend's games, then go ahead and call in. You guys can let us know your thoughts. But let's get into the last game from this past week before we get into Northern Lights. PV versus Commerce. Obviously, PV's homecoming. And I think this was a game that, people was finally happy, excited to see, over 30 points, first of all, right? You know what I'm saying? To see kind of the offense have an explosion, right? You know what I'm saying? Especially in that first quarter, 21 points in that first quarter, up 21-3, and able to kind of finish this game off right with a 34-27 victory. Obviously, Texas A&M Commerce scored with less than a minute left, right, in this game, right? So it was a 14-point game, majority of that fourth quarter until, that last score. But 34-27 victory. What were your thoughts overall on the offense? Thoughts on, defensively? And kind of, is this something that PV can use to build momentum with these last four SWAC games, coming into play?
I think they can use it, but I would like to also see some lessons learned from this game. I'd like to see more of, I guess sometimes you think it's predictable to take your 230-pound running back when you're on the, less than the 5-yard line. But sometimes, even if it is predictable, that's kind of the best thing to pick. So, because I just think passing plays when you're first and goal and really close like that, the field, they have less field to cover and everything is more compacted. So, our linemen are big enough. I just think you should lean on them and try to get in there. The worst thing you have to do is kick it for 3, especially when you have the lead. So lessons learned would be a good thing. And so that was kind of a concern there. It's kind of, sometimes we kind of overthink the game. But I did like seeing that our rushing yards went up. And so that was a good thing as well. So, and the defense played tough. We did get some, some turnovers that really helped because, whereas Grambling is way up here with the turnovers, we really didn't force turnovers with our defense. And not that they played bad, we just didn't force turnovers. So I think we're coming along on that end. I think they're starting to gel toward the end of the year, and that's going to be key for it going forward. I just would like to see more crowd participation seems like sometimes the crowd doesn't understand third down. You're trying to. I think I'm getting my voice a little bit back, and I think it was unusual for it to be that hot this late in the season, and it really beat some people down. And a lot of people that I know had seats. They were in the shade up there by the concession stand. So those are people that aren't participating. Even Section 107, a lot of people were up, near the Panther Den. They weren't down in the seats. So, and those are people that I usually see out there yelling. They were upstairs. So, and not making excuses for the crowd, but just would like to see them be a little more, a lot more active and into it. Because I think the 30 fans that Commerce brought, if they would have got the lead, they would have been louder than our whole stadium.
That's crazy, right? Oh man, it seems like a week in and week out, right? The issue of trying to figure out, how to actually have home field advantage, right? You know what I'm saying? You mentioned something, and I want to ask this coach because that was two things, right? One was, from an offensive standpoint, and I think we definitely, moved the ball a lot better, a lot more efficiency, but there were also a lot of explosive plays, so how do you kind of rank or rate that performance when, you don't necessarily have a lot of long, consistent drives and show that you move the ball consistently down the field and scoring versus you really having just big explosive plays that some kinds can maybe be I don't want to say fool's gold, right? But sometimes you can't necessarily lean on that, right? Because sometimes there's people out of place, individuals, right, get caught in the wrong position, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of balance looking at that from a coaching standpoint to see, how dominant you were from that side of the ball?
Well, one of the things that I was talking about during the broadcast of the game was they were getting some home run plays. So
Right.
sometimes you would rather 3 or 4 singles, like I said before, than just a solo home run, which, you would take those. If you think about it, I think they had a 4-play drive, a 3-play drive, and I think the reverse for a touchdown may have been the 3rd play of the drive or something like that. So you'll take those points, but some people talk about the time of possession and all that. Take points how you can get them. Prairie View had some physical mixed matches that they were taking advantage of early in the game. They were getting Burns one-on-one on the safety, and he took advantage of it every time he got it. Even Sadly had a height advantage on the cornerback. They switched that guy out after Savage caught a couple balls. Spiller ran by a couple guys. So Prairie View had some physical mismatches that they were taking advantage of. And then I think part of the game was they tried to slow it down and were not getting the explosive plays that they were getting. And then a couple calls didn't go their way. But at the end of the day, they won the game. So I think if they look back at it, and Coach McDowell said earlier, they did a lot of self-study and why certain guys were not in the games at certain times. So you could see they put guys in certain positions to make plays, and those guys made those plays. But I'm just happy they won. To put it lightly, against first of all, they won homecoming. That was the first win of the season in Panther Stadium, and the other thing, they beat a Southland Conference school. So I don't care if they was playing marbles out there beating a Southland Conference school. That means something to me.
Listen, we gotta take hey, listen, right now, we may be 1-3 in the SWAC, but we 2-1 in the Southland Conference. So all I'm like we in good position to win the Southland. All right. We may not win the SWAC, but we got a chance to win the Southland this year. That's what matters. All right. But with that said, man, Mr. Carey, and I see Q mentioning saying, hey, the bye week before homecoming was really beneficial. I spoke with a couple coaches, position coaches, who definitely mentioned like, hey, man, we've been going since fall camp. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that definitely was something that I think a lot of the guys were ready to get into, slide into the week. That's why, man, you hope that we could get that win against UAPB before you got to the bye week. Because it's like, boom, now you get those 2 weeks, right, to where you get refreshed. And I just think that's definitely something that you have to think and consider when you're going back and saying, hey, listen, from a scheduling standpoint, those who take care of those things, these are the things we got to be thinking about and considering when we're playing games and where we place them, because we have a very unique situation with us in Texas Southern where we play a conference game the first week of the season, right? You know what I'm saying? Like Jackson and FAM was doing a couple years ago. So we have to think a little bit differently and strategically as far as how we schedule games and how we lay out our first 5 or 6 games of the season to make sure that we kind of have, breaks in different periods of time, at the end of the day. At the end of the day. So I definitely think that bye week was huge. Mr. Curran said they almost let them back in the game again. True Seeker said they look to be in better shape. Mr. Campbell said you sweated out. They were up by 14, right? We were up by 14, right? And with less than a minute to go, right? I don't think it was right. Sweated out. I mean, they pretty much controlled the game throughout. I did think we probably got a little bit less aggressive, right? In that fourth quarter on some of those drives, we probably could have, looked to score. But I think we just like, hey, we just don't want to turn this ball over, right? Let's just, run some clock, kick the field goal, right, and go ahead and take it home. Because I think the one interception Jaden threw in the end zone didn't get enough air on it, right? But did have him in the end zone right there for a touchdown. But you tell, I think that last drive is just like when we got that turnover on downs, like, hey, listen, we just gonna run some clock, run some time off, right? We're not even looking to score here. But I was gonna ask you, Kerry, too, what was your thoughts about, because what I was happy to see from a rushing standpoint, again, James Burns had one rush for 76 yards on that reverse. I feel like, okay, let's kind of detach that from the rest of the running stats, right? Right. We can actually look at the true rushing stats. And again, right, you rush for basically around 100 yards, right? But what I was happy to see was Majay McDowell, right? And it didn't have to be McDowell. It could have been another name there. But whatever such and such name had 15 carries, that's what I was happy to see, right? Because what I have felt is I think sometimes if I talk to my mom a lot of times, like when you have the ability to do a lot of stuff, you end up doing nothing. You do it too much, right? You know what I'm saying? Like let's just lean on 2 guys maybe, right? And allow them to take a little bit more of the bulk of the carries so they can really get in the rhythm, right? You know what I'm saying? And I really feel like this is the first game you saw McDowell start to actually get in the rhythm, right? To where he was starting to see, make a decision quick, right? Get upfield, get some yardage, right? You know what I'm saying? In that second half, you start to see it start to pop.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that and kind of like the how the usage of the running back kind of rotation was in this game where you had, Lamajay, for example, getting 15 carries for 72 yards. And Coach, I would like to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah. I wanted to take my chain down there to him. Because McDowell, normally we would give up on it. And because if you remember his early carries, a couple yards here, there, 1 yard in a cloud of dirt. And normally we would just go away from it because he didn't get it. And like you said, as the game went on, he was seeing the holes better. And also when you have a back that big, the middle of the third and in the fourth quarter, you don't want to see that guy, especially in the heat that we were in. You don't want to see that guy and try to tackle him and at that size, especially running that fast. If he gets up, a chance to get his feet under him, you just don't want to tackle a guy that big. And that's the kind of thing that can, once you had a lead, can really grind out the time. It can really, convert those first downs when it's 3rd and 2. You can those first downs because you've leaned on them so much that they're really tired, and he can just bust through there. And I think that was pretty much a sweet spot, was giving him 15 carries. That's we hadn't done that all year, and it made a difference when we did that.
Yeah, I don't think any of running back has got more double-digit carries this year, right? At all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I guess in my mind, I just feel like, that's something that maybe guys wasn't just not getting enough carries, right, to really get them in the rhythm, right? If the rotation is 3 deep and maybe we're not moving the ball so well, right? on the ground. Well, now I only got 4 carries for this back. This back got 5, and this back got 2. It's a little bit more difficult. Whereas if you take those 11 carries and maybe say give one of those back 7 of those and another 5, maybe that helps a little bit. But I don't know, Coach, what's your thoughts on that? And in this game, did you see that there was something different that we was doing up front with the offensive line? Was it that decision making from running back standpoint, or really deciding like, hey, I'm a squeeze through whatever I find? What was the difference in this game? Because we seemed like we were able to move the ball a little bit more effectively on the ground this game than we were in any other game, so far this year.
I think some of it came from he was being patient, a little bit more patient, instead of running up guys' backs, and then he would push. What we would tell our guys, if they were running inside zone, run to the outside leg of the play side guard and get as close to you as you can to them before you cut backside. And they would push and almost get right to those guys' feet or the back of their feet and then cut it backside. So what that did, that would make the linebackers over pursue. And if you go back and look at it, a lot of their runs started off one way and they would end up on the backside of the center or between the guard and the tackle on the backside. So I think that was a good job. But like Coach said, he wanted guys on the field in certain spots. He was going to probably limit some carries to a couple of guys. Wisham didn't start, which I think but when he did come in, he was productive. But as we talked about, sometimes that bench will make you more productive because if your reps are getting cut down, thing with that certain amount of reps that you get. So I think that was sort of playing, but those guys that ended up playing in the game they took advantage of their runs, and the offensive line, like I say, some of those 1-yard runs became 2, some of those 4-yard runs became 8. So that's what happened when you, like I say, sometimes you run it just to say we're gonna run it, no matter how many people that you were sending at us.
I definitely get that. That was big, man, and definitely big for the offense, right, in the running game to really start to see, right, that hey, we can run the ball consistently. I think that'll be good going into the last 4 games of the season. The last question about this game, Coach, is just I would like to know, man, from a defensive side of things, how did you feel the defense played this game? What did you see that they were able to do well? What were some things that they need to continue to work on? Obviously, I think they would like to get back that last touchdown for sure, right? Because it look a lot better with 20, there than the 34. But what's your thoughts overall on this game from defensive side of things?
Well, I think the good thing that they did, they were able to get pressure and almost take away the running game without having to blitz a lot of people. So they were getting pressure with 3 and 4 guys at times, and they had Commerce quarterback throwing off his back foot a few times. When he couldn't step up and complete some throws. The one thing that I saw, and when I thought they played well, sometimes the slant flat combination was giving them some problems, and they were running a lot of rub routes, and they're not gonna get penalties called for it because they were not picking, because Prairie View was pressing. So I think they're going to have to look at it and see, okay, when we do this coverage, can we run some switch coverage, or can we just play zone? Can we play some off cover too and still defend as well as they did, or play what some people call a read coverage, where you sort of sort everything out on the fly, but the only thing about it takes some time to teach that. And that's something that if you can't really teach it during the middle of the season, if it's not already in your playbook, that's something you might want to put in during next season, because you're going to see when people look at film, they're going to run some of those same short routes against you.
Sure. Yeah. And that was one of the things we got to work on, and it's easy for me, Sunday morning quarterback, but it was one play that I knew was going to come, but they put all the wide receivers on the right. They put number 83 kind of in the, offset off the line. And our linebackers got to recognize that, hey, it's still somebody that's a potential receiver over there. We kind of sold out the other direction. and he was wide open on that side. And I saw it set up when they put him there. And like Coach Northern said, that's something you probably can't adjust just that quickly, but they got to pay attention that there's somebody that's a potential receiver over there. Don't just leave them, like that. So that was kind of a thing. And they had to recognize who the playmakers are and give them more attention because, he really mostly went, at least on his bigger plays, to two guys, number 18 and number 83. And, it's rare to see the tight end just go up the middle and rip off such a long pass reception like he did. So we got to really learn to pay attention to those guys that are doing the most damage. Because like you said, I was proud of how they held the rush game down because I think from me looking at some of the earlier games, they were able to run the ball pretty good.
And I agree with that. I think we won a turnover battle too, and I think that helped. That was one of my big keys. 3 turnovers of Commerce. We only had 1 turnover, and we were able to run the ball, right, on the ground. No matter how you did it, you were able to run the ball, right? And so we won those 2 areas, and I think we were able to do fairly well picking up the blitz as well, because Commerce likes to bring, some different pressures. And that's why I think we won this game. But with that being said, man, we're going to get to everyone's favorite segment, all right? Northern Lights, right? And after that, we're going to run through a couple games of the week really quick, right? And get out of here, man. Get out you guys' hair. But listen, with this week's Northern Lights,
can you hear me?
We coming off of Prairie View talking about homecoming, right? And so I want to know from you, man, when you talk about homecoming, are there any interesting what really happens during homecoming? We talk about from a football standpoint. We had Coach Hampton say, "Hey, this week these activities ain't for you." Coach Bubba telling people like it don't matter. Coach Maynard telling them like, "Listen, all that stuff, the homecoming for the fans. It's for the alumni. It ain't for the football players." But now I know there probably is some stories behind the scenes of what really happened during homecoming time, because we got a lot of guys and players that be on the football team, and the Kappas and the Qs and the Sigmas doing something right. AKA's got something going on. What really happens during homecoming, Coach? Let us know, man, and take us through.
So I think one of the craziest things that I've seen as a coach, one of the years that I was at Prairie View, we had a guy that I'm not going to say his name, but if I say his name, everybody going to know who he is. That when they built those fountains out as you first come on campus, by the visitor center, I should say, one of our prominent players was in the water of that the pools, that we should say, by the welcome center out front. So that's but it happened on the Sunday, and he saw absolutely nothing wrong with him being out there. He was like, technically homecoming hadn't started yet, Coach. It don't start until Monday, was his rationale behind him being out there in the water. So I hope don't nobody put his name in the comments, but if I say it, everybody gonna know who he was. I think the other crazy thing that so I had rules when it came to homecoming. So like I say, I might give them one day to go see something, especially if it was like a comedy show earlier during the week. I would let guys or tell guys, hey man, you go do this. Maybe one Monday or Tuesday you can go do something, but after that it's all football type of stuff. So my rule was after the game, I would tell the players, because I like to go walk around, because I, hadn't been to Southern homecoming in forever. So I like going around Prairie View, walking around, because it was very hyped up. So I would tell the players after the game, like, look, if I see you, I don't care if you with your mama, your daddy, your wife, your grandmother, grandfather, with whoever you with, and you have a drink in your hand, put your drink down. I don't want to see you drinking at homecoming. And I would also tell them, if you see me with a drink in my hand, you don't know me. So I would tell them like straight like that. And it was pretty much the same thing with, if we won, some guys might have cigars. And I knew some guys would, smoke cigars with their parents and stuff as I'm out there. But I would tell them, you don't know me, I don't know you. unless you don't have anything in your hand that's of the adult nature, I should say. So that was the rules I would tell them. And the funny thing about it, you would see them with their parents putting the drinks down. So after the game the other day, I take my son and a family friend to walk around after I finish broadcasting the game. And when I get to the first area where some of the guys are, some of the guys, now they 30 years old, put their drinks down when I walked up. So we had a big laugh about that. So it's some of those things. When I was coaching at Grambling, my mother went to school at Grambling. My dad went there briefly. So one of the things, my mom would go to the game, and I lived close enough to the stadium at Grambling. I could walk home. It was a little bit over a mile from the stadium to my house. And man, I would get home on Saturday after the game, and it would be all kind of people from Baton Rouge in my house. And actually, I saw a guy, he was a professional scout, went to school at Prairie View, but some kind of way, I think he had scouted my brother, and I had 2 NFL scouts at my house, a substitute teacher from the high school. I graduated from Glen Oaks High School, a substitute teacher from Glen Oaks High School, and about 10 other people that I have no idea who they were, just randomly at my house. But because they knew my mom and dad, they would all come to the house after homecoming while I was coaching at Grambling. The other thing, so I'm going to tell you this. So 2 of my favorite players when I coached at Prairie View have passed away. Tyler Dixon, and we call him Chi-Town. Sharon Harmon was he wasn't the best player, but he would always take recruits out on a visit. He would always do whatever it took. You ain't have to worry about him missing no workouts or nothing like that. Made good grades. So look, one year at homecoming, I coached defense. Sharon played wide. It's late in the game, and we are punting the football, so we need a gunner. And I just grabbed Chi-Town. I say, hey, man, run down there, go tackle the guy that they kicking the ball to. So he runs down there and misses the tackle. And I would always mess with him because he had real raggedy gloves. He like old gloves. So he came up to me. When he came up to me, he said, Coach, I pop. And when he said the real hard P, like some real dry spit came out of his mouth. And like it hit me right up in this area on my face. So I said, man, first of all, you don't have to apologize to me for missing the tackle. Second of all, don't put those funky gloves, that close to my face, because you could easily smell it. So look, after the game, this is when we were still in the trailer. Chi-Town walks over to me and he puts his hands like right here. Now, mind you, he hadn't washed his hands after the game yet. And he apologized to me again. So he ends up getting spit on my shirt this time. So I always, think about that. I think about him because of what he meant to the program. Like I say, wasn't going to show up in the stat sheet, was probably one of the best guys on the team. If he was a guy's guy. The last thing I'm going to talk about, so I started going back. For a while, I didn't go to Prairie View's homecoming. So I started going back, and a lot of people may know Miss Wanda with the Panther backers. So I go, she loved my kids. Like, she checks up on Adam and Brooke like they're her niece and nephew, as grandkids almost. So I go over there to Miss Wanda last year, and my wife's friend went to school at Purdue. She had never seen anything like a Prairie View homecoming, having gone to Purdue. Now, all 3 of her kids now go to HBCU. So I'm taking her around, her and her daughter. So we eat with Miss Wanda, walk around, and I go back. Man, Miss Wanda gave me a whole roast. So I'm walking around Prairie View's homecoming with a backpack with a roast in it, and I'm just walking around meeting and talking to all the former players and, hitting up all the spots where my guys are. And they're like, Coach, what you got in the bag? And like I say, I'm walking around with a big roast. And that was one of the best roasts. Look, this year, we go to homecoming. I take my son over there, and she's like, Coach, I say, when it's one, I'm about to leave. I'm not feeling too good right now. She say, well, you can't leave without getting your stuff I got for you. Why? Miss Wanda gave me 2 racks of ribs, a brisket probably that weighed about 10 pounds, and a pound cake. So we've been eating Prairie View tailgating food all day today. So, but I mean, that homecoming means a lot. And I went to Southern's homecoming for the first time in about 20 years because I couldn't go because I was coaching. And man, I had one of the best times in my life. Like I say, I'm seeing people, guys I played with, probably 20, 30 years ago, and then having my kids be able to enjoy the festivities and have them be able to go down on the field with me and like I say, just enjoy the game. My daughter taking pictures with the cheerleaders, the dancing doll, the mascot, you name it. And now when we go to games, she don't understand sitting in the stands anymore. But homecoming is one of the best activities out there. Like I say, Prairie View is up there. I hadn't been to A&T, but I heard it was pretty nice. But Southern and Prairie View homecoming, I find it hard to beat any atmosphere of anywhere else in HBCU football.
Man, Coach, that is so interesting. That man said he was walking around with a whole roast in his backpack. That's crazy, right? You know what I'm saying? Ed wouldn't even like, oh, roast?
A whole roast. I'm saying, like, man, but you gotta, if y'all don't know Miss One, they tailgate in the same spot and they don't turn people away. She has so much, I mean, she probably could feed both football teams and still have enough for all the fans that's out there.
Wow. Yeah, that's big, man. Mr. Carey, man, any special, you know what I'm saying, any special homecoming, you know what I'm saying, tidbits for you? I mean, he got a whole roast in his backpack. Do you at least got a piece of chicken or something? Like, you know what I'm saying, veggie burger, anything?
I can't beat the roast. All I know is wear comfortable shoes and walk wherever you find some smoke and just stop and look hungry.
Yeah.
Because people definitely do. And music, man, it's so many genres of music that's just all through. I mean, it was funny when I took my friends there. They went to the concrete side and thought that was the tailgate. And then when they came over that hill by the radio tower,
right,
it was just like, they said, you know what? I can't go no more. This is overwhelming. I did not have a clue this was over here because you can't see one from the other side. So it's, just be ready to walk. And then one of my other friends I saw, now this is a good homecoming tip. You got to ask to find the crowd you're looking for. Because one of my friends was over there with the young people side of homecoming. And, she was getting bumped around and, because young people, they bump in the, they don't care. Then she finally stopped somebody and said, because she found some cues, but then she asked somebody, I'm looking for the elderly cues. And she said, and somebody told her, oh, you mean the ones from the 80s? Yeah, they're over there.
You got to know which one you're looking for, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's a couple, Coach, you got a couple picks that you sent me, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about these couple picks before we move on to the games of the week, man.
So look, this Adrian Hamilton in the middle right here, that's who I was talking about, led the nation in sacks, tackles for loss, played with the Baltimore Ravens when they won the Super Bowl. So look, when I saw him, we hug and all that, and he sees my son, and he's like, man, that's little Adam. So that went on everywhere we went. But the thing about it, I told Adrian, I said, man, Adrian, there's no way if I'm you, I'm walking around with that shirt on. If I'm Adrian Hamilton, I'm walking around with a Baltimore Ravens jersey on, and I'm probably going to have Ray Lewis walking around with me like, look, this me, y'all. This, this old Adrian still walking around Prairie View camp, but there's no way I would have been walking around with that shirt on. They would have knew who I was.
That listen, you know what I'm saying? You got to remember the work I put in, right? And I think Jared said it, right? Because that's what I experienced, right? They start doing, right? They start putting them on different sides, right? You got the alumni side, and then you got the kids side. I remember when I took my wife 1 year back, we walked around the kids side, saw them, we looked around, we like, yeah, this ain't, we on the wrong side. Don't walk back to the other side. Don't walk back to the other side of the stadium, okay? But talk about this, man.
So we by the batting cages, by the softball field on this picture. So this is a lot of guys that played mostly when I was the head coach. So I know a lot of people. Jarvis played with Adrian, so those were the two defensive ends that we had. Jarvis with the white shirt standing next to me, and you know, a lot of those guys. The funniest guy probably you barely can see. Oh man, he played tight end, Dante Pickett. So Dante Pickett was a guy that had like a 3 point something grade average. But when I would give out, like sometimes if guys had good grades, I might give them a t-shirt, extra shorts, a warm up or something like that. So he was the guy that everybody thought was a knucklehead, but he wouldn't want me to call out his name when I gave out good grades, awards and stuff like that. And look, check this out. Now he's a teacher and a coach. But the funniest thing, like when those guys see me, they always talk about ants and mosquitoes, little things gonna kill you. One guy said, like, Coach, you know, I've been good to the game, now the game being good to me and stuff like that. So, you know, it was good for me and him to see a lot of those guys. And for those guys, some of them hadn't seen him in 10 years. It was real nice for them to see him. So it was a great day. And then these are a couple guys. Moses Ellis is standing right next to me. Moses led the nation in interceptions. I think that was his junior year. And then Medlock, who's standing immediate to me with the gray pants and black shirt, he was a walk-on defensive back that ended up making all conference. I think he finished second in the conference in interceptions. So it, you know, like I say, it's just good for me to get a chance to see those guys and then have my son see them as well. So it was a good day for me.
Nah, that's what's up, man. And again, we appreciate the Northern Lights, man, each and every week. You know what I mean? Coach taking us through those old stories of the SWAC. And like Edwin said, he didn't know, but listen, the old coaches, he say, old coaches, band director teachers have the best stories of shit. All right. You know what I'm saying? And so that's true. So each and every week, man, you know, Coach Northern is sharing. And listen, we already trying to prepare y'all because in November, we having a special Northern Lights on Coach firings. All right. We already letting y'all know. So y'all need to prepare on Sunday for that, right? For coaches firings. But let's get into it real quick, man. We're gonna run through these, you know what I mean, because baby girl is ready to take daddy away. All right. So, you know what I'm saying? As you see, I'm off camera now. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna run through these. We got 3 games of the week this week, right? I got a SWAC game of the week. I had to get the MEAC game of the week in there, and then we got PV, right? So Alabama State Alcorn, real quick. What are the keys to win this game for both teams? And let me know who you guys got. Coach, you can start us off with this Alabama State Alcorn game.
Low scoring game. I'm thinking I'm gonna go with Alabama State probably because their defense is gonna play a little bit better. But I'm thinking Alabama State in a low scoring game.
Kerry?
I agree. I'm going to Alabama State because Alcorn, even though their quarterback runs like a gazelle, their total offense is probably not going to be able to overcome the Alabama State defense.
Yeah, Alabama State has been consistent on running the ball. I think they figured out how to use their 5th string quarterback, Key, you know what I'm saying, and give him some short passes. They've been consistent. And the most important thing for them against Alcorn is they can stop the run, right? And so, I'm going Alabama State in a close game. Last year, I think it was 23-20. I think it may be something close to like that, right? 2017, but I definitely got Alabama State. Now, listen, outside of Prairie View game this week against Valley, which that's probably I'm the only one who got that as a game of the week, and that's just because I'm all right, you know what I'm saying? But outside of that one, listen, this is the one I can't wait to see. Thursday night, you guys, October 31st. I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. What's the key to this game? And who wins this game? Kerry, I'm going to start off with you. Keys to this game, who wins this game? Hey, y'all let me know in the comments who y'all got, South Carolina State or North Carolina Central. Kerry.
Oh, wait a minute. That one's on Halloween?
Yes, that's what I've been saying for weeks. I'm like, yo, the MEAC needs to be literally marketing this because this is just, the way it lands is just crazy. And these are, it's on ESPN2. It's just perfect, right? So let me know what's going to go down.
Well, first of all, now I know I'm going to turn off my porch light so I can watch the game in peace. And I think North Carolina Central is going to be the boogeyman. So I think it's going to be a slugfest, but I like North Carolina Central in this one.
All right, Coach.
Man, I think I'm gonna agree with that, but I think it's gonna be a super close game. Mid-20s, but I think I get an edge to Central.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, actually. For some reason, I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like 35-34, 36-34 in overtime, something like that. And listen, I'm taking Berry and the Orangeburg Benedict Tigers, all right? You know what I'm saying, for the victory. I got South Carolina State. Listen, it's Thursday, MEAC, 31st. It just lines up perfectly, right? So, and Central's had trouble in Orangeburg the last couple of years anyway, right? You know what I'm saying? So, last game of the week, man, PV, Mississippi Valley, keys to the game. How does PV not go in the Valley and have another Alabama Arkansas Pine Bluff game, you know what I'm saying, to officially put in their season? Because the season's not over with, right? Everybody keeps talking about the season over with. The season's not over with. There's a lot of games in SWAC West left. So how does PV move to 2-3 in conference?
They got to go up there and I'm like Coach said, find to your playmakers, and then don't give up the big plays in the passing game.
Yes, and I think this game, and not because Valley hasn't won, because they've proven they can beat PV. But I think this game favors PV because the Delta Devils are they're not a balanced offense, but they can run the ball, and I think PV will be able to stop the run. We'll have to come into that game and, like Coach Northern said, make sure our scheme is set to where we don't give up the big pass plays. And then also you got to remember they took away their 12th man. They still had a man-sized mosquitoes, but they don't have that, 8-inch grass anymore.
Yeah.
So I think playing on that turf, PV will be able to take advantage of his speed. He had that speed on the edges, but also I don't think we need to throw the ball 35 times in the game either, because you give it more chances of a turnover. So I'd like to see us go up, run the ball about like we did this week. One of our backs, or maybe two, but one back got to get it double-digit carries in this game, because I think we'll be able to run on them. And that it might not be a pretty game, but I'd like to see us be able to run on them and stop the run. Stopping the run will be the key to the game, because the Delta Devils can run a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, if we go again, right, and we say, hey, listen, we stop trying to make everybody happy, and we say, listen, Shamar Savage is the best receiver we got. We're going to get him the ball. James Burns is the fastest guy on the field. We're going to get him the ball. And Lamar J is bigger than everybody else in the running back room. He's going to get at least this amount of carries. I think PV win this game, right? As long as we come out and say, listen, we're not going to – it ain't about making everybody happy. It's about winning the game and getting the job done and getting the playmakers the ball, like Coach Bubba keep talking about. Then I think PV can definitely get the job done this week. I would like to see from an offensive standpoint how we handle a running quarterback, right? Because Valley is going to give a chance for Tajarian Williams to run the ball. And listen, we still got Alcorn left that has another guy that's dynamic. So this would be a great game and tune-up if we can win this game to prepare us for a game like that against Alcorn later in the season. But I definitely have PV winning this game. So hopefully we get the job done. But with that said, man, I appreciate all y'all for joining the show, man. And each and every week coming on and just sharing your time with us. I appreciate Coach Northern for always coming with the great stories, as Jared said, and obviously Mr. Carey Wright adding his tidbits and his 2 cents, and continue to join us over here on the recap show. So next week, listen, there's some big games this week in the SWAC West. Hey. For all y'all out there who talking about to be done every week, it's like the boogeyman. We still as long as we hanging around, we got a shot. Right? We 1-3. All right. If we win this week, we 2-3. Guess what? Fam, you got Texas Southern. They about to get their third loss. All right. listen, Southern got to go to Alabama A&M. I mean, play Alabama A&M. We don't know what's gonna happen in that game. They could lose, right? You feel me? I mean, listen, by next week, there's gonna be multiple teams in the West with 3 losses. Just like y'all talk about Graham. Where Graham at? Below us. All right. So listen, just keep waiting, because some of y'all gonna have to pull y'all shirts from off the ground of the dumpster y'all threw them in. Okay. All right, but I still got mine hanging up. All right, because I'm still gonna wait. But until next time, man, we appreciate all y'all for jumping on, from sharing, you know what I'm saying, and for sharing your thoughts and expertise. And until next week, we'll holler at y'all.